Okay. I want to thank the staff and the commissioners. We've had an incredibly busy summer. Just a few months ago, we got started. We were getting our bearings. Staff came on board, commissioners signed up, and we were essentially just trying to put organization and structure in place. But what we found ourselves doing over the course of the last, I'd say, 8 weeks or so, is really beginning to delve into the heart of the matter with various conversations and meetings, both with public, people in the public, in the community, and with thought leaders and amongst ourselves. I think we've gotten off to a great start in terms of the substantive work, and we're now at the point, our executive director will speak to this at greater length, of honing in on the specific issues that the commission will address through structural change to get at underlying structural inequities in the system, the structural laws and the provisions that allow for inequity to persist. Today's agenda is mostly going to be a report from staff on what they've been working on, what we've accomplished as a commission, and what the next 2 months will look like. And so we're going to have an update from the executive director. We're going to hear about public engagement, what we've experienced and what we can expect going forward. She's going to provide us with a commission timeline and meeting calendar. We'll have a report back on the work of the working groups. Every commissioner is a member of a working group, but as we all know, every commissioner is assigned to only one group. There are 3, so we're going to try to give you an update on what the other, what the working groups that you're not in are doing, and give our public an update on what the work groups are doing in general. And then we'll talk for a few minutes about the preliminary report, where it stands. We'll talk about the outline of it and what you can expect, commissioners, in terms of what you'll soon see regarding it. Before we jump into the business of the meeting, I am going to ask that commission members review the August 9, 2021 meeting minutes. Take a minute to review them. I believe that you all, I did receive them in advance, so I'm hoping that you've had a chance to look at them, to read them, and I'm just going to give you a minute to do that, and then we will call for a vote to approve the meeting minutes. Okay, so I am going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I'd like someone to second the motion.
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Coy. Are there any questions, any comments, any issues that anyone may have with them as they've been presented? Hearing none, all in favor of the approval of the minutes, please say aye.
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 I heard a few ayes. Any more ayes?
Aye.
Are there any? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, hearing none, the motion to approve the minutes is passed. And now I will turn the meeting over to our executive director, Anusha Venkatraman. Excuse me.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. And it's so wonderful to see so many of you. I know we've seen a lot of each other this summer. We've been quite busy, so looking forward to share back with you a summary and some of the results of what we have done a little bit later. Reordering the agenda a little bit. I'm going to start with a timeline of what you can expect over the next few months. And then we'll go into the preliminary report. Harold, are you able to move to the slides with the timeline? That's right. Oh, yeah, one before. So here's what we're up to. Between now and September 30th, the staff is busy at work continuing to synthesize the public input that we've received. You've seen much of it. You continue to see it in the working groups. We're finishing up anything that we need to get to you to see what the public has shared with us by way of feedback. We're also busy starting to draft the preliminary report. We'll get into a little bit further detail on that soon. We are targeting September 30th for release of that preliminary report. So very quick timeline, a quick turnaround. We want to make sure, given the short timeline of the commission, that communities across the city have the opportunity to review that report and respond, provide their feedback as we continue to work on our research. Through the month of October, especially into the first half of November, staff will be sort of heads down doing research on the things that we've identified as potential areas of interest coming out of the working groups, especially. November, we will start up public input sessions again. We'll have a little bit further detail on that later today. And we'll begin actually drafting the proposals of the things we will put forward ultimately in December. The vote on those proposals is right now targeted to happen on December 3rd. That's a Friday. And then we will reconvene December 15th to adopt the final report before submitting it to the city clerk's office. So we wanted to give you a sense of what's happening over the next few months so that you can see the urgency that we as staff feel. I'm sure many of you feel that urgency as well. And I see we have a question from Commissioner Bermudez.
It's not on point, I have to say, but I can't not comment on it. Who created the logo, if you will, with the colors and the
We had a designer do the logo. I believe her name is Ivy Newman.
I love it. It's great.
Awesome. We will let her know.
Just wanted to let you know it's very warm, inviting. I don't know, it works. I just wanted to comment on that. I don't think
Awesome.
I
Compliments are always on point.
Agreed.
Great. So Harold, you can go to the next slide. In terms of how those dates line up with our commission meeting calendar, you may have seen an email earlier this week or last week noting that we will need another meeting towards the end of this month. The date that we have identified is September 27th. So a few days before our preliminary report comes out, that will be in the late afternoon, 4 to 6 p.m. The goal of that meeting is to finalize the preamble that we've been working on and look forward to getting your input on before finalizing it on the 27th. Then we'll have a meeting October 19th, November 16th. Some of these are, slight variations in dates. And then I mentioned the December 3rd meeting where we'll actually vote on the proposals. And then December 15th for adopting the final report. So it will be a busy few months. We want you to see and know what is ahead of you and ahead of us as the commission and staff.
I just want to note, I might not be able to make the September 27th. I'm trying to figure out a scheduling issue that I have. So I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Thank you. And if I may just ask, maybe I just missed this. So these dates, for each of these dates, is the meeting set at 4 p.m. or 4 to 6 p.m.? Like,
the 27th, 4 to 6 p.m. seemed to be what worked the best for folks. But it's not completely set yet if we have any conflicts.
that's fine. And I guess what I'm asking is, can we look at all of these meetings and ask people to look at the 4 to 6 p.m. slot? Just
Got
so
it.
that we can, does that work? Okay.
Yeah, that seems to be a time of day that you are all more available than other times of day. I know the morning is typically busy. That certainly seems to be the sweet spot for the commission.
And then just one other suggestion here is that just looking at that December timeline, what I suggest, and I ask other commissions, I ask you, Anusha, and other the commission members to consider is maybe having a hold date sometime between the 3rd and the 15th. If it seems that we have to, get together once more to work up the proposals or to reach some, just do some more work.
Yep.
So if we can find maybe a date that's just a hold. And our thinking here, just commissioners and Anusha's thinking, we've got to write the report and finalize the report. And we'll be running up against the winter holidays, the December holidays. And so we want to finalize the report. The proposals. We want to get everything done. Our aim is by December 17th, so that we can respect your holidays and however you spend them.
Absolutely.
Unless there are objections.
I'm sorry. This is Henry.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay. I raised my hand and I didn't know I was on the other side, but I wanted to know this meeting for the 27th, is it a virtual meeting or is it an in-person meeting? And do we have any clarifications of in-person meeting after the last discussion we had?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm saying that's in my talking points and I forgot to mention. We were thinking the 27th of September and October 19th would be virtual, but the December meetings would be in person and likely the November meeting as well. We'll be really grappling with the content of the proposals, especially at the November meeting. And those December meetings are very important meetings for the commission, not just from the perspective of the work that we're getting done, but from a legal perspective too. And it's also perhaps good to have those meetings in person. So that's the strategy right now, but certainly open to thoughts and feedback. We have the ability to meet virtually or in person. So that's good to have that flexibility to be able to choose what works and what we need as a commission. Great. So unless there's any further questions, oh, and I see a question from Commissioner Hamilton.
So I guess I want to ask, what could also be useful is if we have maybe more directive on what and when it might be appropriate for our best input as commissioners. Like, for example, I know the report, I see the date that you have for release. What is the specific engagement? Is that an approval of the report or is it an acknowledgement of the report, stuff like that?
That's a very good question. For the preliminary report, and I think we can actually go to the next few slides here. It's really more of a summary of what we've heard from community members and a little bit on how the commission is thinking about our work. There doesn't need to be a vote on the report specifically, but we will be today considering a resolution to authorize the staff to produce the report. So Harold, if you could go to a few slides from there. So this is the outline of the report as we're considering it right now, and we'll write it according to this outline, assuming you agree and give the staff the authority to prepare the report. With that authority, we would then share a draft back with the full commission for feedback before we release it, even though we do not need a vote. The date we were planning on sharing it with the commission is next Monday, the 20th. I'm happy to go into further detail on the outline of the report and the consideration of the resolution, which we will also drop in the chat here. But I want to make sure I'm answering your questions, Commissioner Hamilton.
Now, I'm sorry, this is Henry again. Will the preliminary report have, I don't miss this timeline, the preamble would be inclusive of that?
That's correct. So just going over the outline quickly, we're thinking it would be nice for the report to be introduced by a letter from our chair, then an introduction that will include background information on the commission, an overview of our timeline and our process across the year. Then a bit about the commission's approach to structural change, since we're really focusing in on structural change. Then an emphasis on the inequities that we're hearing about and what we've heard through public engagement as sort of organized under those inequities. Then we do plan on including the preamble to the charter. That's one main reason why we've scheduled a second meeting this month, later September, to make sure that we have enough time to work with all of you on the content of the preamble. And then there will be a section on what members of the public can expect next following the release of the preliminary report. What opportunities will they have to review, to comment, to continue to provide input and feedback on the proposals we should be considering?
May I ask a question to the amendment? The preamble, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with the preamble as I think about it now. The preamble doesn't need to be voted on as a proposal?
That is a
Does
good
it-
question that we can take back to our legal team. You know, most of the rest of this is, you know, summary what we've done and what we've heard. The preamble is the portion of the report that has the greatest specificity, and does take the form of something closer to a proposal. So I think we should consider whether it's necessary or whether it might be strategic.
And I appreciate that. I guess the next step that I'm going to is that when I think about a preamble to the New York City Charter, I'm actually thinking about a charter revision that would include a preamble. And so it would seem to me that the voting public has to approve the preamble. And that would then become one of our proposals, in which case at this point, are we going to be ready by the report, the preliminary report, to vote on a preamble proposal? That's my question.
Yep. It will be a draft that would ultimately become a revision to the charter. And I know we have our general counsel, Melanie Ash, who is on. I know she's been working on this and may be able to answer the question better than I. Melanie, are you here?
Yes, I am here. Thanks, Anusha. Yeah, the preamble section of the report, the preliminary report, is intended to be simply a draft of a preamble that that could be shared out to the public so the public can see the direction that the commission is going in with the preamble, and provide feedback. And you're correct, Chair, that the actual approval or addition of a preamble into the charter would need to be voted on, and so would be a part of the proposals that would be considered by the commission at the December meeting, and in December 3rd meeting, and then again as part of the final report, which will attach all of the proposals. So there will be a voting by the commission on the content of the preamble during those 2 meetings. But so the version that would go out, what would go out in the preliminary report would simply be a draft to give the public the opportunity to see where the commission is going and to provide feedback on that draft.
Okay, so thank you. So I appreciate that. I do think though that we need to take note of and just spend some time, but perhaps not in this meeting, but just picking up on points that Commissioner Hamilton has raised in earlier meetings and conversations. Ensuring that if the draft is a preview, we need to make sure it's different than reporting out what we've heard. It's very different than reporting out what we've heard, and we need to make sure that we have the agreement of the commission body that the draft is representative of their thoughts and ideas. It reflects them and it's consistent. I just want to make sure, because anything that becomes a draft and even if it's draft for the public, it becomes the base off of which we're working, and we need to make sure that our commissioners have an opportunity to, and I know you have the 27th reserved for this, but
Absolutely.
we'll have to make a decision there about whether or not we're in a good place.
Right. And even before then too, I think many of you may have the level of input that we can set up a private meeting and you can share your feedback directly with the staff to make sure it's fully reflected. You should be seeing that draft in the next day or two. We have worked on it a little bit with leadership of the commission, and I think we're about ready to share it with the rest of the commission for your input and your feedback well prior to the meeting on the 27th, so that what we're seeing on the 27th already integrates all of your input.
Are we good? Are the commission members good with that?
Madam Chair, I think the question here is timing. I appreciate and thank you for the clarification about the voting of the preamble. But I think that if we send out a preliminary draft of the preamble, that is also a preliminary draft of the preamble, that will begin to look at, I think we would have to move very quickly to take a move on a vote on the preamble and then take a vote on the other issues that may take longer. That would be my suggestion. Otherwise, the other ideas that we have are not fully out. It's only what we've heard. And the only thing that would be fully out, for argument's sake, wrong words to use, but fully out would be a preliminary draft of the preamble. Does that make sense?
I appreciate what you're saying. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And as far as I know, I don't think we have to vote upon all of our proposals in one place or one meeting. So we should certainly consider and discuss what you're proposing, Henry, in terms of addressing the preamble earlier than we address other proposals.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Yep, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Henry's point about the putting out a preamble. And I would suggest we don't put out a preamble until we fully approve one. We can put out our intentions of putting out a preamble, but I wouldn't release it until we get it approved. I also question about the structural inequities. Is that basically the thing that the structural inequity approach, the commissioner's approach to structural change, I'm sorry, is that what we approved earlier by vote, or is there something else that you have in mind?
It's mostly background information about what structural change is, building on how we define structural racism. So the framework that the staff had developed and that the commission voted upon in May, I believe, is sort of briefly mentioned there, but it's more of a sort of methodological approach to structural change.
Yeah.
And happy to share with you further details. Any other questions on the report, the outline, the content? I will say in terms of language and tone, we really want this to be as accessible as possible in terms of how the staff and some of the leadership of the commission have talked about it so far. We want both people who have been involved in the commission's process to date, either testifying, submitting input online or whatnot, to see themselves in the report, but we also want folks who may not have engaged yet to pick it up, be excited, and want to contribute over the following few months. So we're trying as much as possible to make it an accessible document that can be useful to a wide variety of New Yorkers.
Yeah, I'm sorry somebody asked this before. I don't think I heard it, but so this report, this first report is not going to have any of our quote unquote concrete recommendations yet, or even telegraph any of that. Like what's the balance between, because by then we know, right, the themes that have been emerging, what's been constant in almost every single panel, almost every single public, the good old policing issues, right? Let's take that as an example. So will this report include any of that at all? I mean, I'm assuming it'll, so let me back up. It will include the themes because it will include the summaries of the, but it won't necessarily say, and the commission is going to probably act on one of those, right?
Right, that's exactly right.
That's where
it will have the themes. It will have, here's generally what we've heard from the public on these themes that have really emerged, because we've heard from many people on this theme or this topic, or many people share this proposal, but the report doesn't say what the commission or is not planning on saying what the commission is and isn't interested in taking on, with the exception of the preamble, which is much more specific.
Thank you.
I dropped in the chat a copy of the resolution that we shared with you in advance. Not sure if we're ready to move there. If folks have more questions on the report or even the calendar of our timeline and process that we shared prior, happy to answer any of those questions or address any thoughts. If not, I think we could probably move towards the resolution.
Hold, are there any additional comments or thoughts that people want to share before we take a look at the resolution? Okay, and as we move to look at the resolution, I just want to note for the record that Commissioners Mata, Bain, and Garrido and Hamilton are now with us. So let's just make sure we make note of that. Let's talk a little bit about the resolution and what we're doing here. So as you all may recall, when we first began meeting back in the spring, specifically in April, we delegated authority for day-to-day operations of the commission to our executive director. That delegation didn't explicitly include the power to produce and release public reports on behalf of the commission. And so as we prepare to release a first report, and we've even talked about, we need to make sure everybody else knows that we've talked about whether or not we actually call it a preliminary report. Once we look at what's actually in it, is that the specific title? But a report that essentially, I'll just say it differently for purposes of resolution. It's a report that will give the public, a statement and understanding of what we have done to date, what we've learned, what we've heard, and what are the inequities that we believe are structurally based in racism that merit attention. And as our executive director said, we, depending upon where we get over the next 2 weeks, may have a preamble that we would include in draft form. So we have not given the leadership, the executive director, and the operations, the commission staff, the authority to release the report. It's not released by the commission; it's released by the commission staff. And what has been prepared is a resolution that would do just that, give them the authority to release the report, keeping in mind that the commissioners are going to have an opportunity to review and provide feedback on the report prior to its release. Understanding that we're doing a resolution, not a vote. We don't have to vote on the report. So, Anisha, I'm not sure whether you've asked a commissioner to read the resolution. Are you going to put it up on the screen?
We can, if that is easiest.
Would that be helpful for people who may be watching?
Yeah, I can screen share it.
Okay. I do believe that you put it into. Thank you, Melanie. Commissioner Daniel Favors has joined the meeting as well. Can people now see the resolution? Yes. Okay. Have you asked someone to read it, Commissioner? Have you taken?
We have not asked anyone in advance to read it, but
Okay.
I think especially for members of the public joining in, it would be nice if someone could.
Okay. Is there anybody who would like to read today? I don't see anybody raising their hands to read.
All right, I will do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The resolution of the 2021 New York City Racial Justice Commission. Whereas the 2021 New York City Racial Justice Commission has completed an initial round of public input sessions, including one focused on and located in each borough of the city, and 4 citywide public input sessions comprising 1 in-person session and 3 virtual sessions, with one of those focused on hearing input from youth below the age of 24. And whereas the commission has heard and received written testimony from members of the public at those sessions in person and virtually, including from representatives of public interest and advocacy groups, community organizations, elected officials, and local residents. And whereas the commission has heard and received testimony from thought leaders through its series of Transforming Foundations issue panels, and whereas the commission has solicited comments and ideas from city agencies, including leadership and staff, and whereas the commission has solicited comments and ideas from New Yorkers through the commission's website, and whereas review of the testimony, written input, comments, and ideas reflect a wide range of issues of interest to New Yorkers, whereas review of such testimony, written input, comments, and ideas has identified persistent areas of racial inequity across the city, including inequity in quality services that promote social and emotional well-being, inequity in work, great, thank you, advancement and wealth building, inequities within and across neighborhoods that inhibit thriving individuals, families, and communities. 4, marginalization and overcriminalization of communities of color. 5, inequity in representation and decision-making. And 6, lack of enforcement and accountability of government and other entities. Now therefore be it resolved that the commission direct staff to prepare a preliminary report summarizing the testimony, written input, comments, and ideas received, discussing the persistent areas of racial inequity that have been identified, and setting out certain planned areas of focus for the commission's work, including the creation of a preamble for the New York City Charter. And may it be further resolved that the commission directs staff to further research and analyze the causes of the persistent inequities identified, as well as potential solutions, including those already identified by the public. And be it further resolved that after the release of such preliminary report, the commission shall invite further discussion, testimony, research, and analysis on the preliminary report, including through a second round of public input sessions to solicit input on the preliminary report, the preamble, and other planned areas of focus. You're mute, Jennifer.
I was trying to unmute and I'm having a hard time. Thank you so much, Anna. We will vote now on the resolution. Now, before we do that, having had the conversation about the preamble, are there any changes that we need to make in order to, reflect the conversation had? I believe there are changes we need to make to reflect the conversation we just had.
Madam Chair, I believe we need a motion in the order in a second and then discussion thereafter. So I offer a motion to approve.
Okay, so I just thank you for saying that to me, Henry. I didn't know if we needed to make the changes before we even made the motion, given that that the resolution that we're looking at, we already determined that there were changes, but I got you. We'll do it this way, and then we can make the changes if we need to. Motion to consider the resolution. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Do I need to? I can now. I'm confused, Henry. All in favor of?
It's a motion to consider a resolution as amended.
Right. So once we seconded, we just move into the consideration.
The discussion.
Yes. Thank you. I got confused for a minute, despite the fact that I had to chair a board meeting this morning. Okay. So now that it's been moved and seconded, time for discussion. And what I was speaking to just a minute ago was before we even read the resolution, we had discussion about the preamble, and concerns were raised about the preamble and about, if it would appear in the report. And so it is my opinion that there needs to be a revision of language that doesn't make it a definitive, like a definite that it will be included, but that, that the working with the commission or the commission will determine that staff should or should not include a preamble in the report.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would just say that I think we have to start from a premise that we have the best possible intention of getting the best language, on a preamble. I think if we all agree that there ought to be a preamble to the Constitution of the most important document of the city, that I think we would agree on that. But I also think that we have to acknowledge that this process will probably not be perfect. That getting every single language, even when you do these kinds of preamble, years ago, years later, decades later, the United States Constitution, you look at the preamble of the Constitution, you say, oh, but we skipped that, right? And there's been so much discussion about what one word may mean over the other. I think that with all the respect to us as commissioners and to the staff, we have to sort of like move forward in language that encapsulates the feeling and the sentiment of what we want to do. Understanding that, the language may not be inherently perfect, but that we got to start somewhere. And I'm not selling us short, and please don't misunderstand what I'm suggesting. But I am suggesting that if time is of the essence with the preamble, that perhaps we don't want to get bogged down in like individual, discussions and nomenclature that may mean something else, but that rather we agree that our intent is to have the sentiment in a preamble be captured as best we can.
Point well taken. I also just want to make sure that we hear from, I know Derek has had some concerns. I don't know if there are others who have concerns just about what is in there and wanting to make sure that it is reflective of shared voice. But I appreciate the point that you've made, Henry. Are there others who would like to comment on that, on this point, or any other point? Commissioner Hamilton?
Yeah, so I appreciate Henry's points, but I actually have slight different stance and think that the preamble is one of the more important things we can do. I think we are in unison that we need a preamble in the charter, but in the interest of getting it right, I would not recommend that we release a statement unless that we of what the actual preamble is going to be, even in draft form, until we actually get it right. Because to me, it's one of the most important things we can do, which is setting the values of the city as stated in the charter. So, you know, my suggestion is that we express our intent to do a preamble, but not actually release it until we get it right. I got a couple other points. Is it appropriate to talk about those things now, or should I hold on?
Please, please.
I would, in the list of topics that are written, we do say include, but I might suggest we wordsmith it to make it clear that it's not an exhausted list, that there may be other topics that were expressed, and that we're not limited to examining those topics. And I think it's important that we word the resolution to make that a little clear. And then a little bit more wordsmithing in the paragraph right after, we use the word the structural. I'm not looking at the document, but we use the word the as in these are it in the next paragraph. I would just say something like more generic as these are some examples or some of the structural inequities. I'm sorry, I'm a little incoherent because I'm not looking at the document right in front of me. But then the last point I want to make is, in a lot of ways, we're authorizing not only the production of a preliminary report, but the release of a preliminary report in this vote. So I want to be careful in making it clear that if it's a release, that it's the release of the executive committee's interpretation of this summary of what was said, because, you know, if it very well could have ramifications later on when we do our work of making recommendations. So just to get the record clear that if we are going to vote on a yes, that the language should be clear that this is coming from the executive committee's interpretation of what they heard.
Good points. Are there others? Oh, please go ahead.
I just wanted to note that I started screen sharing a live version of the document so that we can make edits here. And I don't think, Commissioner Hamilton, I noted exactly where your revisions were. Oh, you're on mute.
I'm making my screen bigger so I can see better, but that is good. So the first comments were with regards to the paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th paragraph, whereas we review written and identified. You know, we have including, but I would make it even more very clear that including but not limited to, so that language is clearer. And then
so in this section.
Yeah, we see where including is. So the wordsmithing, I would suggest including, but not limited to, yeah. And then if we go to the next paragraph, we have, where was it? Summarizing, where was my concern?
It was, Derek, I think it was like the part about release, that if we were saying, right, to prepare and setting out certain plan areas and focus including. Says, and be further resolved that after the release of such, right, but it doesn't say who's going to release it or like under whose umbrella, I guess. Is that what you're? concerned about?
That's right. And I had another minor point, but it's so minor, I can't remember that I'm willing to look beyond it. But that's the major one, that one right there. Yep, it is the after making it clear that it's the executive committee's interpretation of the, I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm losing track of what I was trying to say, but basically that the release of the executive committee's interpretation of, and this ain't the exact wording, of the testimony that was presented.
So that it's not essentially what you want to make sure is that that we are noting that it is the interpretation or the voice the given to, but it may not be the voice specifically of like what we heard or what we interpreted was not necessarily at every turn that which was spoken, and we want to reflect that.
I mean, perhaps it could even
Would
say
that go
after,
here?
in that last paragraph, that's where we are at, after the release of such preliminary report, as you know, I guess I'm trying to put the ownership on the executive committee and making it clear that it's that report that they did, because we would not have had a chance to vote on that report.
I see what you're saying. You're saying that this is the staff. It's not, it's the commission staff, and it's not the commission's report.
You know, ultimately we own it, but we're authorized.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to, you're trying to make that you wanted to be clear that this is not an official body of work that has been created, that it hasn't been, I don't know how, like, it is the commission's, at the end of the day, the commission is authorizing the staff to put it out. And that's why I'm saying to you, what you're really speaking to is it's a summary of, which again takes me back to whether or not we actually call it a preliminary report. We're just reporting out right now. Preliminary suggests that we're now, like everything you see in here is where we're going. And I just want to be careful about that.
Yeah, to me, preliminary also covers and we may have gotten it a little wrong, you know, it's preliminary. So we're going to get reactions to, you know, from people, as it says there, like we'll invite further discussion on this. Solicit input on the preliminary report, the preamble, and other planned areas of focus.
So maybe what we can do is that for the last paragraph would be something along like allowed, you know, so then after we get release a preliminary report, and then we get additional round of like public input, and then, you know, for the commission for final report of some sort, you know, so there should be some conclusion, the purpose, you know, so then we could, I assume we're gonna do either a final report later on, and then also try to, you know, get some proposal onto for the voter to vote on in 2022, right? So do we want to say anything about that? Or we just gonna leave it as is? You know?
We
That's
could
the
say at the
thing.
end something like for consideration for the final report or something like that.
I think Commissioner Thompson just put in the chat, should we call it an interim staff report? I think so.
Okay.
What I'm really getting at here is, this builds on what you said, Derek, when you say, if you look at that paragraph that begins, whereas review of such testimony, you asked us to insert the words including but not limited to. We want to be very careful that what is presented in this report is not seen as, you know, that it is not seen as the precursor, the outline of what is to come in the event that we make some adjustments. It may be the case, and I'm just talking right now, that just of the inequities that are being presented in this resolution, that our proposals may not, I'm just talking, may not address all 6. So I hesitate to call it a preliminary, because that suggests that we've already done the outlining. This is I like interim report, I like a staff report, giving, presenting the work to date.
Yeah.
A summary of what we've heard, all of which is providing, insight for the commission to deliberate.
Yeah, I think that's good, Yeah, I agree with that.
Me too.
Happy to wordsmith what we call it. We may also want to give it a more exciting title too, to grab public interest, and then have a subtitle that says, interim report of the staff of the Racial Justice Commission or something like that.
If I
will note that we
Yes, Ash?
have called it a preliminary report publicly. So that's, my only concern here is potential confusion because we have referenced it publicly.
I think that's okay. I mean, we've got a lot of work to do. Some people still don't know that there's a Racial Justice Commission. So I think, even with all the hard work that all of you are doing, I do think we'll be okay.
If I could just, this is Melanie Ash here, just to confirm, just the precedent in previous charter commissions is that the preliminary report is issued by the staff. And so this would be consistent with the sort of standard practice. The resolution authorizes the staff to do that, but I don't think it would be inconsistent to have this be styled more clearly as from the staff. They do use the term preliminary sometimes, but we can choose however you would like to name the report.
Okay. What I'm centering on here, just seeing what people have written in the chat, are we all okay with approving this resolution as a report, a staff report? Okay.
My worry is that we make it such a distinction that it's a staff-only report. It doesn't give enough weight, because I feel like, that's my only concern. I don't know how we should address that. I mean, because it does, reflect, what the commission also have heard, right?
I hear your point. If it says the Racial Justice Commission
Right.
Staff report or report of the executive director, I think that would give it some heft, right? Okay, all right. Interim report in the interim prepared by staff. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I was just thinking that, it could be called an interim report, which sounds, less like it's produced by the commission than preliminary. And then in all of the introduction and the sort of descriptive language about the report, it can make it very clear that it's produced by the staff.
Okay, all right. We've wordsmithed this together, and I think we're getting to a better place. And it's not just wordsmithing. There's some specific content changes in here that I think are good. And I agree with. Let's just very quickly jump back to this preamble piece. And what I would suggest at this point is we've got 2 weeks where we're going to be spending a little bit more time with this. We'll know where we are. We'll know where the commission members are. I would put in language that is not definitive, that is not absolute. I would put in language that, the report may include. And then we'll see where we are in 2 weeks.
So I had written in including the intention to create. Should we say potential intention or something like that?
What I guess I'm saying to you is that, I don't think that the resolution needs to.
We can delete that too.
Yeah, I don't think that I actually don't think you need it in there. Because if you say that it will set out certain planned areas of focus, then that would capture, if we're ready with a preamble or we want to make a statement about a preamble, that there would be a preamble. I think it would capture.
So I have changed, I think, every instance of preliminary to interim. So interim report prepared by the commission staff.
Right, but that pamphlet that you're in right now, you've got to just go 2 words over and take out the preamble.
Got it.
And we may get there. We just don't need to have to then vote on another resolution if we don't.
Mhm.
So let's aim to get there. We'll see what we get. All right. Are there any other questions, considerations? Derek? Derek, you're on mute.
I guess I'm gonna try to push again on naming it what I think would be more accurate, which is it's a interim staff report. And the reason why I guess I'm putting that emphasis is because I expect it to be an excellent report, but it's still almost a blank check. We're voting right now not only to authorize the production of the report, but even the release of the report without another vote and without knowing exactly or having another opportunity to review it. I'm happy to vote in favor of the production and release of a staff interim report.
Are there any other comments or thoughts about that?
I think that's wise.
Yeah, well, I don't think I had, I guess, grasped that this would be preparation and release without us, quote unquote, weighing in on it. Is that what?
Now,
Yeah.
there will be a weigh-in. I think the concern that, and I don't want to speak for you, Derek, but I think the concern that he's raising, and I think it's one that can be appreciated, is there may be, how do I best say this? Oh, we may find ourselves, some of us agreeing with like the report and 80 or 85% of what it said. We may take issue with how things are, described in the report. We may want to, there may be people who question or challenge whether or not the report is leading in a way that it should not. I'm just talking right now. There could be any one of those concerns or more, and we will not have had the time to, to discuss and debate that and make sure that the language that is included is reflective and considerate of those concerns. And so I honor that in this moment, and I understand the time that we've had. Derek, I don't know if I'm capturing.
Got it. No. Yes, I realized after I said it that the timeline is such that we couldn't really have meaningful discussion among the commission really to resolve any issues that we had. So.
And Chairwoman, you have exactly captured my sentiment. Thank you.
My only ask as executive director is that once we get towards release, that we have the ability to title it publicly something maybe a little bit more exciting with interim staff report as the subtitle. So I would want to retain that possibility so that it's something that the public, the media can get excited about.
You want something that captures like what's in it, that draws people in to read it.
Exactly.
I think that is fair. Like, I'm just talking in my head, voices of this is not it, but voices of the community, interim report of the.
Madam Chair, I have a technical question.
Okay.
Forgive me, I don't want to belabor this. But if we ourselves as a commission will not be drafting our own report, separate from that of the staff report, so that it becomes one and the same. Isn't putting interim staff report suggesting that the commissioner itself would have to have a report?
That the commission itself would have to have a report?
Right. Because if it's interim staff report and it's a final report, it seems to me that's one and the same.
The commission does need to have
talking
a final report.
Right, but I'm saying is who's going to draft that? Who's not be drafted by the staff also? Just ask.
Let me ask you something. Do you have something that says interim? We could, what I'd like to do, I think we're all picking up on an appreciable point and concern. Is it an interim report prepared by the staff,
But
the Racial Justice Commission staff? Does that resolve the issue? I mean, no.
yeah, I think, yeah, maybe, because I feel like we just say it's a staff report that's not really giving the credibility and backing, to the staff. And then same time as if it's like, there's a difference, because I feel like that we should, I understand, Derek's concern and others, but then at the same time, I feel like if we just say it's a staff report, then it becomes like this kind of like a kind of not, there's not strong enough of a backing and unity. So we say that it's an interim report prepared by the staff, maybe that could work, but that's my concern, in terms of, I said, with distance from, potential distancing from it, because I think the staff's going to get a lot of feedback from the commissioner, right? Before they publish it. So I feel like we need to have some kind of like support, behind it, backing behind it, to show backing behind it.
If I could weigh in again here, this is Melanie Ash. I just have pulled up looking at the 2018 Charter Revision Commission's report, and it is in fact termed an interim, sorry, I lost my spot in my email here, preliminary staff report. So it is consistent with practice that the initial report be termed a preliminary staff report. The final report is different in that it is going to be reviewed and voted on by the commission itself. So while also drafted initially by staff, in both cases there can be feedback from the commission, but in that case, the final report does receive a vote by the commission on the report itself. So it differs in that way, which would be a reason why they could be titled differently. Not to say that, so a preliminary staff report is a consistent practice in previous charter revision commissions, which we could follow here.
Okay, yeah, I want to put this to bed as quickly as we can. What I'm just going to say this, what I'm centering on here is the nuance here is that we are talking about race and race matters. Very different than a report about ranked choice voting. And the sensitivities, the language, how we talk about and present this work is something that that isn't, it's not as easy to put it on paper and make sure that it represents the voices of everybody in the way that they want to be heard. And on a short time frame, I think that there's a legitimate concern about that. And that's what I'm trying to figure out how to honor here. This is a little different. It's a lot different. And I don't want to minimize that. Derek?
It's also more accurate to call it a staff report for the reasons already mentioned, that we won't have had time to have reflected and come to cohesion. And to me, that's okay. I think and what's its purpose? Its purpose is to summarize what's been done for us to move forward in our ability to come up with a final report. So I think it's more accurate to call it a staff report for the purpose of informing our work going forward.
Am I hearing that I think it's time to call a vote. If what we're looking at is, I'd like a motion.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that,
what
people just said, so yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, the resolution has been changed in several critical areas. Henry, I'm going to ask you to help me on this. Sometimes when making changes to some other resolutions, you go point by point and you reread the resolution. I want to make sure that we are following the rules. So would you please give me some guidance?
You have two options. You can do it as a friendly amendment to the original motion, and as a maker of the motion, I would accept that. Or you could do an amended motion and read it for the record on the changes that have been made, and we can do it either way under Robert's rules.
Okay,
I would
Um,
accept a friendly, I would consider a friendly amendment because I said amended, as amended. So if you want to read the changes, that would be my suggestion.
okay, so I just want to make sure we're saying a friendly amendment with the rereading of all of the changes, not the resolution in its entirety.
Correct.
And I believe do I need a motion to consider the friendly amendment?
You don't need a motion. It's a friendly amendment. You need the maker of the motion to accept it. And I am the maker of the motion. I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, and now does it require a reading?
Have to read and then you take a vote.
All righty, okay, who would like to read? Derek, would you read the friendly amendments?
May I read from where the amendments have been made?
I would think that's okay.
Yeah, and I guess I'm gonna ask, let me see if I can make it bigger. Here we go. All right. Whereas review of such testimony, written input, comments, and ideas has identified persistent areas of racial inequality across the city, including but not limited to, and then the text remains the same. And then we move down to another amendment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the commission directs staff to prepare an interim staff report summarizing the testimony, written input, comments, ideas received, discussing the persistent areas of racial inequality that have been identified, and setting out certain planned areas of focus for the commission's work. Then we skip to the last paragraph where other amendments have been made. And be it further resolved that after the release of such interim staff report, the commission shall invite further discussion, testimony, research, and analysis on the interim staff report, including through a second round of public input sessions to solicit input on the interim staff report and other planned areas of focus.
All right,
Okay, can I make one last suggestion?
friendly.
Friendly. No, because it's just to mirror the language used previously. So other planned areas of focus for the commission's work, which is 2 paragraphs before, is how it's laid out.
I second that amendment, that suggestion.
All right,
Did I capture that accurately?
Yeah.
all right. Having heard the friendly amendments, I now, if I'm on point, Henry, and you can be here to help me, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of the resolution, please indicate by raising your hands or saying aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The resolution carries.
Let the record show, Madam Chair, the resolution passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Henry. All right, we've got a resolution. We've got 15 minutes remaining in this conversation. I do know that our executive director wants to give us some further updates, as well as give us an update on the working groups. If I may ask that we prioritize that, perhaps even over some of the public engagement, as that will be reflected later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for the authority to now prepare the interim staff report. We're really excited to share with you soon what we have already gone ahead and started working on at risk, but now with authority. So I'm very excited to share that with you soon. Moving back to our full agenda. The other things we wanted to share with you today is a very brief report from myself as executive director, a report back on public engagement. We have now closed out this phase of public engagement over the summer, which is incredibly exciting. Share with you the plans for engagement in the next phases, and then do a brief report back on the working groups. So I think I will start with the executive director report because it's very short. I just wanted to share quickly with you that we've had some changes in staffing since our last meeting. We have brought on Chi Nguyen, a senior advisor working on sort of the intersection of communications and public engagement strategy, as well as how it connects to policy work. So very excited to bring Chi on board. And we also now have a college intern through the end of the year working with us part-time. We do have some not as great news, which is that Jacqueline Kennedy, who's been with us since almost the beginning of the commission, will be leaving the staff of the commission after this week. I just want to thank Jackie for all of her hard work in putting together the input sessions over the summer and many other things, including a fantastic youth input session just last Friday. And Jackie, thank you. We wish you all the best. That brings us to our team being a small but mighty team of 13 behind the scenes doing all the work that you see. You'll see a report out shortly on the public engagement, and we already have talked about the preliminary report. But meanwhile, we're already getting started on a good amount of research based on the work coming out of the working groups. And lastly, as you may notice from my background, we're all in person in the office full-time at 253 Broadway. We welcome you to come visit us anytime. If you'd like to stop by in person, please let us know if you would like to. We're here every day. So that's it for my very brief report. In terms of agenda, I would love to actually do the public engagement now and then move to the working groups, but happy to switch, Jennifer, if you prefer.
My concern is that we're going to lose some board members and commission members, and they may have more awareness of public engagement and less of what's happening in the working groups.
Okay.
That's my concern.
Yeah, that's fine. And I'll say that this deck that we're sharing, which we also emailed to you, has a lot of good stats and sort of takeaways from public engagement that I think you can read through yourself. So if we're ready to move to the working groups, I will bring Jimmy over to share with you. Yep, I see we have Jimmy on. And you can go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our working groups. Just a really quick status update. All groups have been meeting weekly, schedules permitting, and will continue to do so. We've focused on root cause discussion in each group and analysis of that. And there's been a lot of conversation which has informed our approach and our thinking. For example, we've had discussions, frankly, about the value add of root cause analysis and how that plays into the proposals that we may want to lift up to the commission. We've also discussed how we're even bucketing ideas, and that's certainly informing how we are approaching the interim staff report. We've also had discussions to flesh out different concepts and facilitate mutual understanding between commissioners and staff, just to make sure that there's alignment and so that we can see the road ahead of us more clearly. So you all know, staff will be working very hard these next few weeks on idea review and synthesizing all the information that we heard in our public engagement so that we can provide a clear menu of options for commissioners. And like I said, these discussions in the working groups, although they go in a lot of different places, they have been very crucial for the narratives and the framings that are going to be in the interim staff report. So for example, we had a meaningful discussion about the root causes of lack of accountability, such as the foundational failure to hold entities accountable for being unaccountable. And we also had a discussion about, for example, how marginalization and overcriminalization go hand in hand with deprivation of services and resources, that these foundational orientations serve together to maintain disparity of power. And so just real quickly, we do intend to continue these working groups through at least the end of September, unless we find that they're no longer needed and we can better spend time elsewhere, either internally or as a full commission. But when you see the interim staff report, you'll see a lot of these discussions that we've been having in working groups reflected in their narrative and how we are framing these ideas.
Is that the full body of the report? Okay. I would just ask, at what point will the commissioners learn about the work of the other, or of the working groups in which they're not?
Yeah, our goal is to reach out to commissioners in the next week or two. Everyone's schedules are really busy. So, if you're able to provide availability to us as to when you can meet with us, that'd be very helpful. We'll try to reach out to you and find time as well to show you what other groups have been doing and to hear your ideas about the issues that the other groups are talking about, and just to hear your thoughts on process overall.
Just to chime in here, we thought one-on-one meetings would be an appropriate place. We can share with you the Miro boards and the work from all the other commission or working groups, but they need a little bit of explanation. So I think that's a little bit easier done in a meeting that we can schedule at your leisure.
Are there any questions on this? Okay, and then I guess also just giving your feedback to Jimmy and Alicia about these working groups, and the question that Jimmy posed about whether or not, once we get to just like narrowing down to the specific issue areas, do you want to continue as working groups, or do you want to come together as one body and work these issues together? Please provide your feedback to Jimmy and to Alicia on that. That would be extremely helpful. And sooner rather than later, as they plot out the next month's work.
Absolutely. I will note that, we don't necessarily have to make the same decision for every working group or every commissioner, especially moving past September into October. You may have different things to give. You may want to continue to work with us to flesh out proposals, or you may be more interested in working with us to engage, constituencies and communities. So I think there are multiple options, and we don't necessarily have to choose the same option for every commissioner or for, say, each individual working group.
All righty. Do you want to turn to public engagement?
Yep, we can do that briefly. And I know, Harold, you will be screen sharing and presenting at the same time. So let me know if you need any help.
All right. Hi, everyone. Hear me okay? So want to just quickly go through the public engagement work that we have done over the last, about 9 weeks now. Focus on gathering input and ideas to shape the ballot proposals and advance racial equity through digital and in-person channels. So we had public input sessions. We have online public forums. We had done small groups and community partner interviews with our consultant team. We had panels, a series of multidisciplinary thought leaders testifying on specific issue areas with our Transforming Foundations series. And then we have other, events and meetings that we have participated in, People's Festival that the civic engagement has led, and other meetings. For example, tonight I'm going to present the work we have done so far to the Adelaide Park Civic Association in Queens, virtually. So just to give you a perspective of what the work that we have done at a glance, a lot has happened within a very short period of time. July 12th, announced our public engagement plans were announced, and then the 20th, we kicked off our virtual panel series, and then July 29th was the first input session held in Staten Island. And then the color codes you see was public input sessions in purple, light blue, or gray, I'm sorry, gray, and then light blue, virtual, and commission meetings in pinkish, and then public events in light blue as well. And then upcoming, we have the report release. And then just note that the 23rd, 26th, the 10th were virtual sessions. And then we had a really good youth panel back on the 10th. So just to, give you a kind of visual of where we had these meetings. These meetings were hosted during the weekday in the evening hours, all live stream languages in American Sign Language, Cantonese, Mandarin, and Spanish. We held the Staten Island meeting at the Gerard Carter Center, Bethany Baptist Church in Brooklyn, Queensborough Hall, the Schomburg Center in Manhattan, the Bronx Museum in the southern part of the Bronx, and then Hamilton Madison in Chinatown just recently. And then with that, we had a pretty good media presence at each of the events. We had coverage from various outlets. We also had, invested in getting local ethnic media ad buys. And so we did radio, did print, and other ad buys during this period of time. Direct outreach to community-based organizations and leaders. As a result, we had an average of about 900,000 impressions over the 6 events. 260 members of the public attended in person or online, not including who registered, and received about 60 testimonies up to this point from those input sessions. As you see here, some of the outlets that covered us was the Amsterdam News, all the way down to the Staten Island Advance. And many of you have been interviewed or gave quotes and were quoted in some of these publications. And in the Transformative Foundations panels, the topics covered overcoming racial disparities in health and mental health, eradicating education inequities for BIPOC, achieving racial equity in housing and land use, planning for racially equitable future, economic equity, and closing the racial wealth gap, racial inequity and early foundations, ensuring a fair and just legal system for all persons, and ensuring civic and political engagement and empowerment for all persons. And then most recently, the intersectionality, equity across identities. In total, the commission has heard 1,950 minutes of testimony and question and answers. So shout out to all of you who participate in a majority of that. And you have heard from about 71 panelists during that process. So the next phase, which I'll touch on, is that our goals are that the next phase of engagement is to educate the public on the contents of the report, solicit feedback, and collect input from the public on ideas and the proposals being formulated, expand awareness of the commission overall, and then seek validation from civic leaders. And the format that we're going to use is public input sessions, having an online feedback, and then constituency-based engagement, which I could certainly use everyone's help on. So any questions on the public engagement piece?
I have no questions, but I do want to thank you and thank Jackie. Yeah, I actually shouldn't begin naming people, but I do want to thank you all. Jackie, as Commissioner mentioned, will be leaving us, but she played a lead role early on in coordinating the strategy for public engagement, and then getting things set up, and there's been a team working with her, and we want to thank everybody for that. And then I just want to thank Harold, who just came over maybe a month ago, and has just jumped right into position, and has made sure that when we move into communities that key leaders and community members know that we're there. He does a lot of advanced work in troubleshooting, and I'm sure he'll be working all the more closely with us in this next phase of public engagement. So just want to recognize everybody, and again, appreciate that there are names that I haven't called, but this has truly been a team effort. And because of your work, we've gotten some great input and insight from the community. And the last thing I'll say on this is that you all have been very busy, but we're about to get even busier. And just lean in, and please know that you are appreciated for all that you've done and are doing.
Thank you so much.
Are there other matters you'd like to speak to at this time, Anisha?
That's the agenda. I know we are at time. If we had a little bit more time, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and impressions from the public engagement, any key takeaways, but we can certainly discuss those in other meetings. So we have covered everything we've needed to cover today.
Good deal. And I thank you for that. Let me ask of the commission members, if are there any items that you would like to raise at this time? Any issues, any questions? For those of you who joined us after we began, Anisha did present to the commissioners the schedule of meetings, the full commission meetings through December. And so we'll make sure that you have that in your charter inboxes if you don't already. I can't remember. There is an upcoming meeting on the 24th. My understanding.
27th.
27th. We ask for full participation, as that will be a meeting that will be substantive, and we'll be spending some time with the draft preamble. You will receive it in advance in your charter inboxes, and we want you to spend some time with that. You'll also be receiving the draft report that will be released at the end of the month. And so we want you to pay attention to your inboxes to be sure that you've got what you need to be engaged, give feedback, and make sure that your voice and your thoughts are thoroughly considered. I am not seeing hands signifying that there are additional questions or comments on the part of board members. So that being the case, I will officially end the meeting. We'll bring the meeting to a close, and I will see all of you, hopefully, or as many as possible, at the next meeting, September 27th, 4 to 6 p.m. It is a virtual meeting. Thank you all. Thank you to the team, the staff, and to all the commissioners and all listening in. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.